So dopamine is not just released from dopaminergic neurons whose cell bodies are localized in the substantia nigra in the brainstem, but also from that VTA, or ventral tegmental area in the brainstem. And there are, as I indicated earlier, a number of discrete pathways, out of the VTA into forebrain structures, particularly in the frontal lobe. But these include, for example, sort of limbic targets, like parts of the striatum, but this is the ventral striatum, where the caudate nucleus and the putamen sort of come together, and then there's this nucleus in the frontal lobe known as the nucleus accumbens, and then there's also pathways from the VTA into the prefrontal cortex. So there's what we call the mesolimbic pathways. That includes, the nucleus accumbens, for example, and also the hypothalamus. And then there's these limbic structures, of course. And then there's the mesocortical pathway into the cortex. And both of these VTA-derived pathways are pretty heavily implicated in, motivated behaviors, in, responding to stimuli that predict the delivery of reward and drive, activity and drive our behavior. So they're, clearly going to be involved in, the development of drug use disorders, for example. There's a lot of complexity involved in these dopaminergic systems, though, because if you're motivated to engage with something, well, you're going to release the brakes, right? So, there's there's both movement and motivation that are sort of wrapped up in the release of dopamine. But we'll see as we continue with this class that when, people who are dependent on, drugs, or, have a use disorder, and even those of us, who like to have a cup of coffee or have a beer and things like that, when you see, stimuli that relate to the, to receiving that reward, to obtaining that reward, to figuring out how do I get from here to what I really want, well, there's going to be, that motivated activity is going to involve, release of dopamine in the mesolimbic and mesocortical pathways.